This is CBC Vancouver News.
We feel that it's unreasonable for BC taxpayers to be sending money to the federal government to be distributed to provinces like Ontario.
BC backs a legal challenge to Ottawa's equalization formula and could file a lawsuit of its own. Plus,
I want the provincial government to stop operating a two-tiered system when it comes to patients with obesity.
A Vancouver doctor petitions the province to have pharmacare pay for obesity treatments. And
it's about saving lives.
why Granville Island says it's time the city puts suicide prevention fencing on the Granville Street Bridge. Hello, I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Thanks for joining us. BC will support Newfoundland in its court challenge over federal equalization payments. It's the latest salvo from Premier David Eby, who maintains BC is getting a raw deal when it comes to funding from Ottawa. As Katie DeRosa reports, the Premier is betting the legal battle will end up in Canada's highest court.
BC's Premier says it's not fair that a wealthy province like Ontario received almost $500 million in equalization payments last year, while his province got nothing.
We feel that it's unreasonable for BC taxpayers to be sending money to the federal government to be distributed to provinces like Ontario through the Equalization program.
That's why BC is backing Newfoundland and Labrador's lawsuit against the federal government over equalization payments. Premier David Eby made the announcement alongside Newfoundland's Premier Andrew Furey on the last day of a meeting of Canadian premiers in Halifax.
We're asking for the courts to evaluate the fairness of it, the mathematical calculations of it.
BC will be an intervener in the case and consider launching a parallel lawsuit of its own. Eby says it's possible the court challenge could be fought all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. So what are equalization payments and why do they get premiers so worked up? They're basically a tool used by the federal government to balance the scale between have and have-not provinces. The formula is based on a province's ability to bring in money through taxes and natural resource revenues. BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan are considered have provinces, partly thanks to their robust natural resource sectors. However, Eby and Furey argue the funding formula ought to factor in other costs. BC, for example, has a larger seniors population, which translates into higher healthcare expenses. One political scientist says Eby's latest volley is a clever and long-standing strategy designed to win over voters who are going to the polls in BC in October.
It is certainly a useful political tool to show that premiers from one side of the country to the other are standing up for their residents against those folks up in Ottawa.
But Eby claims there are federal politics at play, which influence Ottawa's decision to shower money on vote-rich Ontario and Quebec.
It's obvious that political considerations are blocking the ability of the federal government to prioritize the needs of British Columbians.
Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland was not available for comment, but a spokesperson says she stands by the equalization program, arguing it ensures fairness for all Canadians. The formula is reviewed every 5 years, and the next review is set for 2029. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
A fire burning near Spence's Bridge is on the move, expanding evacuation orders tonight.
We do have staff who have been active at the evacuation order zone, communicating with residents on the ground, making sure that this has been an orderly evacuation. We had Fire Smart staff in Venables Valley earlier today before this order was issued.
The Thompson-Nicola Regional District Emergency Operations Centre has issued an evacuation order for Venables Valley in Electoral Area I. That order is affecting around 76 properties and approximately 100 people. And the Cooks Ferry Indian Band has ordered the evacuation of Reserves 5, 6, 8A, 19 Firstly, and 22. Evacuees are being asked to register at the reception centre in Cache Creek. And experts are warning the weather could spell trouble for the BC interior.
We are concerned with more dry lightning to ensue over the southern regions for today. The fuels there are really dry and the indices are quite elevated just because we've seen no precipitation through the southern interior this whole month.
Meanwhile, Highway 97 between Peachland and Summerland was closed this morning by a wildfire. The BC Wildfire Service says the out-of-control blaze was just over a hectare and suspects it to be human-caused. The highway has now been reopened to single-lane alternating traffic. The Kamloops Emergency Reception Centre has now opened. Centre is meant to provide short-term assistance to those evacuating from fires, floods, or other emergencies in and around Kamloops. Organizers say setting up the reception centre ahead of any actual emergency provides chances to train to receive evacuees and a large amount of new volunteers.
I'm quite impressed. Our team has done an incredible number of recruiting. We've brought on close to an extra 100 members of people, but also we're training them. We can't just take somebody off the street. They have to go through a fairly significant amount of training, criminal record check, things like that. So I think we're in good shape. We just hope that the fire gods will smile kindly on our province this summer.
Gordon is one of over 200 emergency support service volunteers that helped run the training at the Community Reception Centre located at the MacArthur Island Sport and Events Centre. Well, weight control is a problem for many people. It's now estimated 23% of adult British Columbians are obese. The Vancouver doctor wants the provincial government to cover obesity treatment under its pharmacare program. As Belpuri reports, a petition calling for that change argues the province has a weight bias.
Here, these are the petitions.
The message in the box is clear.
I want the provincial government to stop operating a two-tiered system when it comes to patients with obesity.
There are 4 approved medications to treat obesity. None of them are covered by BC Pharmacare. The out-of-pocket cost for patients is up to $450 a month.
You have to pay for your treatment yourself for a disease that would offer significant benefit, not just to a patient, but to a healthcare system that's already in crisis.
Obesity is a known risk factor for many chronic illnesses, including heart disease, osteoarthritis, and cancer. The price to treat those diseases is astronomical.
If we can prevent those long-term costs with some short-term $7 a day, which is what we're talking about, then I suspect the mathematics works.
Emily Henry has battled weight for decades. It's a problem, she says, rooted in her childhood in a family of 12 on a Cree First Nation in Saskatchewan.
What I recall so profoundly is growing up in that sense of lack and not having food, always feeling hungry, always feeling hungry.
Once food was easily accessible, Emily couldn't get enough of it.
I had this thing where my pantry had to be full. Otherwise, I felt like, I felt incomplete.
Then came the consequences.
For me, obesity led to physical illness. It did. It led to diabetes. It led to high blood pressure.
For a year now, Emily has received treatment for her diabetes. The prescribed drug also causes weight loss. To treat diabetes, it's covered by Pharmacare. To treat obesity, it's not. BC Ministry of Health says the Canada Drug Agency tells provinces and territories not to cover obesity treatments. The agency says it's still unproven if treating obesity actually cuts the risk of developing other diseases. In December, a study in the New England Journal of Medicine reported a 20% risk reduction.
The frustration that we have as healthcare providers is there is treatment. It is effective. Patients are demanding better care. 1 and 1 is 2 here.
The petition to government so far has nearly 1,000 signatures. Belpuri, CBC News, Vancouver.
A registered massage therapist in Surrey has been acquitted of sexual assault. His lawyer says he's relieved by that decision, but as Yasmin Rania reports, he's now trying to clear his professional record.
Extreme relief.
Artur Bodie Harrelson's lawyer says his client welcomes the acquittal.
He's lost a lot over the last few years, but he's definitely hugely relieved to have this off of his back.
Mounties charged Harrelson with 1 count of sexual assault related to a client in November 2022. He was acquitted in early July. Surrey Provincial Court provided CBC News with audio recordings of Harrelson's trial. The Crown prosecutor invited the court to enter an acquittal, saying that after closely reviewing her notes, she was unable to say in good faith that the Crown has proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Judge Dalaram Jahani says she found many internal and external inconsistencies with the evidence that Harrelson's accuser presented. "I have to say for the record that I do find him innocent of this crime," she said in an oral judgment.
I think that meant quite a lot to my client and his family to have been vindicated in that way.
Harrelson's lawyer says his client continued to practice massage therapy throughout the legal proceedings, but with restrictions, including not being able to treat female patients. The College of Complementary Health Professionals of BC says the limitations are still in place pending an investigation and hearing.
We look forward to taking whatever steps we need to go to a hearing at this point.
It's unclear how long the process will take. Westell says the college will be reviewing a transcript of the judge's decision as part of its overall evaluation. Yasmin Raneya, CBC News, Vancouver.
A long stretch of South Fraser Perimeter Road in Surrey is still partially closed after a head-on crash between two tractor trailers Tuesday night. Police say 3 people were hurt, including a 41-year-old man driving one of the trucks. He was sent to hospital with serious injuries. 2 men in the other tractor trailer have since been released from hospital. The crash happened on South Fraser near 136th Street around 8 p.m. Police say speed may have been a factor. Eastbound lanes are currently closed with a detour. They will be open at 5 a.m. The City of Vancouver says it has found temporary funding for 3 out of 4 downtown Eastside washrooms that were at risk of closing. The washrooms are at Oppenheimer Park, Pigeon Park, 144 East Hastings, and at the Astoria Hotel. They were originally funded during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic by the province and feds to serve the growing homeless population in the area, but that was set to expire. The city says internal budget savings mean it'll be able to keep the Oppenheimer and Pigeon Park washrooms open, while the East Hastings washroom will be paid through the Overdose Prevention Society. The Crisis Centre BC and other local groups are urging Vancouver City Council to put suicide prevention fencing on the Granville Street Bridge. In a letter to Council, the Crisis Centre says there have been a number of incidents on the bridge in the last 15 years. Council has previously approved funding for preventative fencing, but the group is asking for it to be installed sooner.
It's about saving lives. We know that suicide prevention fencing is effective in preventing suicides from people jumping from the bridge.
In the letter, Granville Island says no incidents have happened on the Burrard Bridge since fencing was put there in place in 2017. The motion will be brought to Council next week. A record 76 black bears were killed in Prince George last year, according to BC's Environment Ministry. The figure is more than the previous 2 years combined. The previous record was 45 bears killed in 2020, while 36 were killed in 2021 and 32 in 2022. Prince George has led the list for 6 of the last 8 years. The numbers were released through the Association for the Protection of Fur-Bearing Animals through a Freedom of Information request.
In fact, 50% of bears killed in 2023, we have no idea of where those deaths occurred. The only information that was provided to us from the BC Conservation Officer Service was the top 10 list. It begs the question, though, how did we create a top 10 list if we don't know what all the other municipalities were?
The 76 black bears killed in Prince George were the most in a single municipality since 2016, when the list was first compiled and released. Well, if you're planning to head south to the U.S. with a dog this summer, be prepared to jump through some hoops before you cross the border. New requirements would include a signed form from a vet. Georgie Smythe has those details.
Entering the US is about to get harder for Mahmoud Bakayoko and his dog Isyam, but he says new regulations won't deter them.
We're gonna take him anyway.
Starting August 1, Canadians can only take their dog to the US if it's at least 6 months old, has a readable microchip, they have proof of a rabies vaccination, and they file an import form in advance that includes a photo of the dog. It's a big change for some owners who say until now, border regulations were lax.
To be honest, sometimes we've gone over and they've never even looked at the papers.
Ottawa wants things to stay the same.
What am I asking for? An exemption?
Health Minister Mark Holland says that because Canada is already rabies-free, the rules are unwarranted.
We believe it makes sense to have a policy that protects our hemisphere rather than having individual policies for two different countries.
People who rely on straightforward crossings are worried too, including those who use service dogs.
I cross the border multiple times a month when I'm traveling all over with my dog, always.
Vets say they're already swamped without this additional paperwork.
There's a vet shortage, so having a lot of appointment spots filled up now for travel appointments as opposed to sick animals is just going to further burden a system that we're already struggling to keep up with a little bit.
There might be some leeway. Canada has asked for a grace period and is now waiting to see if the US plays ball.
When we make plans to go, we'll probably find out exactly what the rules are, what we need to do. We'll just do it and go.
For many, the extra legwork is a small price to pay to bring their pet across the border. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
We have an update on a recall notice that affected Silk and Great Value refrigerated beverages. 2 deaths linked to those products have now been recorded in Canada. A wide range of products were recalled July 8th after the Canadian Food Inspection Agency found they could be contaminated with Listeria. Since then, 12 cases of Listeria have been recorded, though none here in BC. 9 people have been hospitalized nationwide. Listeria is a foodborne bacterial illness that can affect anyone exposed to a contaminated food product. That brings reading to the road. We climb on board Kamloops' bright red book bus next. Picture a rolling library that makes stops at parks around Kamloops. Shelley Joyce paid a visit to Valley View Centennial Park and spoke with some of the young readers who are boarding the Bright Red Book Bus all summer long.
Who's been to the book bus before? Some of us have, some of us haven't. Okay, I'm a teacher full time, and then in the summer, I'm a literacy coach for the book bus. Who was ready to go on and choose a book? Me. Awesome. Definitely helps my teaching practice in the classroom just with reading and really getting to know all the books that are out there that the kids love. It helps me bring them back in the fall, and I love working with kids, so it's a really good summer job for me.
It's really fun. I mean, I love reading in the morning, and having the Bright Red Book Bus with us is just like, it's super fun to be around, and I just love it.
I really like it because you can read a lot of books, and like there's a lot of my favorite books in it.
We come to the Red Book Bus usually about 2 times a week. We bring the books back and we exchange them for new books. It keeps the kids entertained and busy, and all the crafts and stuff that they have set up here for us really makes our mornings really smooth.
We get to drive the bus all over the community. So we have 2 locations a day. We do a school and a park combination right now. So there's about 10 locations in a week that we visit. And that's really special to us because we get to visit all areas of the community.
We love it. It gives us the opportunity to get new books weekly, to keep the kids reading during the summer when school isn't in, and making new friends. It feels good when they come. Even if they can't read the story on their own, they'll make up stories to go with the pictures. It's really good to keep their imagination going.
Here's a shot of downtown Vancouver this morning during sunrise. Dar will have your full forecast next.
I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Applications are now open for CBC's Indigenous Pathways to Journalism program. This paid 9-month learning and development opportunity supports Indigenous candidates to really hone their skills as storytellers. Indigenous Pathways provides journalism training, career development support, and work experience. Applicants do not require journalism education or experience to apply. Learn more at cbc.ca/pathways.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And our Darius Maravi joins us now for a look at the forecast. Definitely felt like we had some more cloud cover in Vancouver to bring temperatures down a little bit today.
Yeah, a little bit more cloud cover, a little bit less sunny towards the end of the day, but that's clearing up overnight for a very sunny day again tomorrow. A little bit of a disturbance in the atmosphere, so that brought some cloud. It wasn't unexpected. I was hoping for some, prettier clouds, but that's fine. What we got downtown was just a little bit overcast, but that's all right. I'll hold out hope for whenever the next time we see cloud is. Across the south coast, really nothing but sunshine unless you're on the west coast of the island, where there's maybe a drizzle and then staying cloudy into the afternoon. Maybe a morning drizzle up for the North Island as well, but there it should start to clear up as we get later into the day. Now, the sunshine here, I'm sure many people are enjoying going to the beach or the lakeside, but in the interior, it's a bit of a different story. Here on the coast as well, our fire danger is rising. We have seen at least one fire down here that is generating quite a bit of smoke down just east of Duncan. But the big story is going to be in the interior over the next few days. There's a very low risk of some lightning happening on the lower mainland and maybe on the alpine sections, lower mainland and the island over the next few days. But it's fairly low compared to what's happening in the interior. We already saw quite a few lightning strikes in the interior earlier today. And so that activity is expected to continue through the end of this week, even as we continue to see those heat warnings pretty much blanketing the province. As a result of those fires, we also have quite a bit of smoke activity, a bit more concentrated in parts of the southern interior now, but of course up in the northeast is where we're really seeing that smoke. In terms of precipitation, not much on the way over the next few days. There is going to be a brief front that might pass over, bringing some precipitation to the northeast, but it's going to be very short-lived, very brief, maybe very heavy for a brief moment, but also going to bring, likely to bring some lightning activity. So not necessarily all good news in terms of that. It's really just the northwest that's getting any significant amount of precipitation. In terms of temperatures over the next few days, we're looking at, again, plenty of highs in the high 30s into the 40s, so be prepared for those temperatures not going away anytime soon. Heat warnings not going away anytime soon. In terms of conditions across the province, lots of sunshine still, although again, chance of a few storms. And here in Vancouver, it's the same story, Michelle. Nothing but sunshine over the next few days, and temperatures staying high.
All right, Dar, the heat continues. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Many of us have seen the Olympic flame as it makes its way from Greece to host city Paris. Here's a look at how the torch carrying that fire was made. About 6 tons of steel had to be melted to make 2,000 torches. The 70-centimeter device weighs 1.5 kilograms, about 1,500 there for the Olympics relay. The remaining 500 are meant for the Paralympics relay. That is your late news for Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1, and that starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.